Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic radio. You are listening to Honest to God. It's a party today. We got a really good crew. Everybody's a pro. We got a little bit of Nene. We got a little bit of remind everyone of your name. Leo. We got a little bit of Leo. We got a little bit of remind me everybody of your name. Rachel Sonsky, Saviano now. Oh, I'm sorry, no last name. And we have your strapping husband over there, Julian. So we got a great episode today. Very excited about it. We're going to be digging into. We recently did an episode about how relationships begin, and now we're going to do one about how they end, which is going to be less happy, but it's going to be really, really good. As always, got producer Ben in studio.
As always.
We never addressed the fact that we didn't have you in studio recently, and it was rough.
You did this without me?
Yeah, we had producer not Ben.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't bother memorizing the guy's name because he wasn't you. And sense. As always, to my right, there may or may not be Show Notes Benny. We got Show Notes Benny Cam?
No.
There he is.
Never.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because we keep trying to film Show Notes Benny.
I've lost 4 cameras.
It's bizarre. And the thing is that they float off, but then when you get closer to them, they get further away. Right? Almost as if there's some epicenter that is Show Notes Benny, but also it's a bizarre situation. But to my right, it is there, and those notes will be taken.
I'm sure there's some papers written about like how time warps inside of Show Notes Benny, but
Yeah, and if there's any sentience to Show Notes Benny anymore, I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you being here. All right, so with that, let's get started. Let's begin with a prayer. Leah, do you want to pray? You don't have to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're on the conversion train right now, and I feel like your prayers are extra special as a result.
Oh, wow, okay. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. God, please just give us the ability today to be able to speak the way you want us to speak, and let this episode reach the people it needs to reach. Lord, we know that somebody is watching right now and they're needing to hear this, God, or maybe this will lead them to another episode that leads them to you, God. So just let us do everything through you. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit, amen. That was good. It was good. Yeah, I liked it. It wasn't a major letdown that we had last episode that we filmed, where we had somebody who's a Byzantine on who, for the first time ever, did not do the best prayer I'd ever heard in my life. But that's all right. That's all right. So everybody has this one fun fact. I'm going to start. I'm going to do a fun fact today because we talked about this right before the show started.
Okay.
And I learned this last week, and I'm super excited about it. Biff from Back to the Future, right, is a serious Catholic who takes his faith super duper seriously, and his daughter is Emily Wilson, like the Catholic speaker Emily Wilson, which is pretty darn cool. And a crazy coincidence because this episode of Honest to God is actually brought to you by the 1987 DeLorean. Isn't that crazy? That car in particular brought us this
specifically.
Episode. Mm-hmm.
It was a good year.
It was a good year. It's a terrible car. It was a terrible car, but it looks super cool.
It does look cool.
Yeah, so we're excited about that today. I don't know how that's going to tie in with the theme, but it's going to be great.
Who knows?
So you all just owe us 1, I think. Well, no, Lee, you never gave us 5 ever, did you?
Yeah.
Did she?
You did?
Yeah, you told me not to. And
Oh,
I made sure
that's right, and you did anyway.
Yeah, I got a special one today. I'm excited.
Okay, never mind. All right, so everybody just owes us 1 then, starting with Nene. What you got?
I have spaghetti squash for the first time the other day.
Was it as big of a disappointment as it sounds like it was?
No, because I made it myself at home and it was fantastic.
Spaghetti squash is delicious, actually.
I'm just not going to accept that. I just can't imagine.
It's just like a squash, but then you scrape it with a fork.
Yeah.
And it just becomes spaghetti.
No, I understand the logistics of a spaghetti squash. I just don't support it. I don't think God wants it to be.
The Catholic Church does not support
Then why is it
squash.
called a spaghetti squash?
Yeah, that's fair. Why would God have named it spaghetti squash? My wife got a zoodler a while back. Are you familiar with
That's
this?
not a real thing.
It is a real thing. You put a zucchini on it, and you spin it, and it turns the zucchini into zoodles, right? Zucchini noodles.
See, that feels way more cursed.
Oh,
than
it's
a spaghetti
horrible.
squash.
It was terrible. I hate everything about it. Yeah. Anyway, Leah, what you got?
Okay, so my fun fact is I learned something since the last episode I was on, which was my conversion story. In that, I mentioned the first mass that I ever went to was in Columbus, Georgia, and Hannah's family happened to go to that same church before too, so he sent it to the priest, Father Ben, and he was like, oh, this is interesting, like they mentioned you should watch it, and the priest recognized the house because Ben and the priest have been friends since kindergarten, and that's Ben's godfather.
I haven't been friends with the priest. My dad has,
I thought I
which
said
is
that. Yeah,
bizarre.
Ben's dad.
I don't know how I didn't realize
And
that's
just such
the
a
priest you were
full
talking
circle
about.
moment. Like,
Yeah.
nobody,
That's really cool.
that's when, like, my faith is something nobody can ever take away from me because everything is so connected. Like, you can't deny that.
I've seen that
Like
priest
the
in his
first-
underwear.
Hopefully, I never do.
Not in a
but
weird way. It's because he's
We got
like family.
You got it.
Glad we clarified.
No, that is really
Yeah.
cool. That was
That is
wild
crazy.
when we made
Yeah.
that connection. I think
Yeah.
Hannah just told that to me at like the carpool line at school or something one day. Like really, it was really that is mind blowingly cool. Yeah. All right, Rachel, what you got?
So I gave birth to my first son on the 14th, and then gave birth to my second son exactly 5.5 years later, also on the 14th. And then I gave birth to my third son 6 years later
Exactly.
on the 28th, which is 14 and 14.
Whoa. Okay, that is cool. I wasn't sure where you were going with that one, but now that makes sense. That's super cool. Yeah, because you guys can create male offspring, and I cannot.
Yes.
And
did
I'm
it one
fine with
time.
that. I did it one time. And he's great. And now it's all ladies from here on out. I've got girl number 4 at the house right now, 5 weeks old yesterday. So she's doing great.
If you have any advice on how to have a girl, please leave it in the comment section below.
Maybe we can just
Our
swap
next episode.
our next kids at birth.
I have tried that with other people.
Notice?
And they always chicken out at the last
Do they
minute.
really?
They do.
What wimps?
Yeah.
I'm not a quitter, Julian. I will switch babies with you.
Okay, you heard it on
If we
here.
can coordinate the births just right, we'll just flip flop them.
They'll never be able to tell. the
Nobody will
difference.
know.
All my
And
kids
the
are
babies.
identical to each other, which is weird though. Like, and I'm sure most people are like that. Your babies look so similar when they're babies.
Yeah.
My wife keeps saying, I feel like I've had this baby before. Like that's her like, go-to phrase right now. And it is weird how similar they look. All right, Julian, what you got?
Okay, so in light of our relationship, I will just say that I am on, honest to God, for the first time with the most beautiful woman in the world. I've been on with many beautiful women, but
Right.
I am finally here with the most beautiful woman in the world and
Which
my
one
wife.
are you talking about?
Yeah, you have to be specific.
Oh, my wife who's sitting right next to me.
Oh, okay.
Who I don't know how she looks so stunning, especially today, with taking care of 3 children by herself while I'm at work, and then I just see her on the
Despite
screen.
the harsh fluorescent lighting, too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just stunning. And all the other women look beautiful too.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
And so
How
do
do I
John
look,
Henry.
Julian? Okay, thanks. Yeah.
You forgot
Producer
Ben.
Ben, hard for me to see.
Yeah,
There's a microphone.
I haven't been living in my house, and so I haven't been doing my conditioning routine on my beard, so it's a little poofy today. I'm not about that, but I'll take it. I'll take second best. All right. So with that in mind, let's get into the topic at hand, which is some amalgamation of healing a broken heart / relationship ending and all of that. And so I want to start by saying that in all relationships, right, if done correctly, there are 2 options. Those 2 options are marriage or breakup, right? And I want to start before we talk about an actual broken heart and how we handle that. I want to ask the question of how do we know when a relationship should end? What are the thoughts on that? Now, from a Catholic perspective, the answer is, Ben and I were actually just talking about this off air. When you realize that this is not a person that I can spend the rest of my life with, right? After that, you're just wasting each other's time. But what are some indicators? I'd love to hear your thoughts on when a relationship should end.
When there's a lot of fighting.
There's a lot of fighting.
lot of
Define
fighting.
a lot. What's that mean?
Like you fight like probably once every other week.
Okay.
For like 6 months.
Oh, okay. That sounds long time. It does. Okay. All right. What else? What are the sort of bridge too fars in relationships? What are thoughts on that?
I would say if you are at a point where you're not discussing anything that's involved with the future, if you're just going through motions, if you like, okay, hey, we're going to hang out this day, we're going to hang out this day, but there's no discussion of where, and I mean that when we're at 6, 8, 10, 12 months. If we're not talking about kids, marriage, even just flirting with the idea, that might be the time to do that.
Well, I was having a conversation with people not too long ago with a group of group of young people, and we were talking about how relationships rightly ordered, I think the discussion was about chastity, both physical and emotional chastity, right? There is a gradual increase until this crescendo of marriage that it's designed for, right? And that's when, obviously, from a physical intimacy standpoint, a lot of doors open up there, but also from an emotional chastity standpoint, you get to this point where it's now I can really reveal to my heart to this person because I'm sacramentally bound to them.
Yep.
And if you find that it's stagnating and you're never getting up there, you're never getting closer to that point, then I do think that it makes sense for backing out of that. Interestingly enough, I think this is true of you. Both you and I broke up with our wives before we married our wives. Is that true? Didn't you guys break up?
No, that's not exactly true. I broke up with, my wife and I broke up after we got married.
Oh, that's right. We did that we discussed that in the conversion story episode, which might be out by the time this comes out.
It will be out by the time this guy is out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go back and check that out. And while you're doing that,
a great
make sure
episode.
that you subscribe to Honest to God on AM 1160.
You got to go to the channel page either way.
Yeah.
So why not?
It's pretty fantastic. And so, yeah, my wife and I dated for about 2 weeks, and I always joke that she was the worst girlfriend I ever had. I was the worst boyfriend she ever had, and we broke up. And it was really that thing, this sort of stagnant, like I feel like we're just doing this because we think we're supposed to do this because we have the same friends and we run in the same circles. And then we broke up, and then me really like had a real dark, deep look at my prioritizations and my own brokenness and said, yeah, I need to fix this. And my wife told me that I wasn't like at a level where I needed to be dating her. And I said like, oh, okay, that makes sense. When I tried to get back together with her, that's what she told me. And it hurt. And I worked on some stuff. And yeah, I think it's going to work out. We'll be celebrating 13 years in April and 5 children.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Any more thoughts on that? Because I want to get into this broken heart stuff for sure. But I also think that we have, in this culture that we live in, a lot of people with really distorted understandings of relationships and just human intimacy, just what romantic relationships look like to begin with. And I think we oftentimes go into those relationships with not like malicious intentions or anything, but just with a disordered understanding of what that relationship means. And as a result, it just sows a lot of confusion. Any other thoughts on that?
I have a comment on that. I don't know if this is exactly an answer to like when to break up with somebody, but one thing that I thought about when I heard that, what came to mind was lust is such a sneaky sin, and like it's not really cool anymore.
Said lust is yes.
It's not normalized. It's not cool to wait till marriage. So you see a lot of young couples like very early on having sex. Like a lot of people, that's just how it goes nowadays. And it's so like those lines become so blurred when you need to back away, when you're also driven by like that sexual desire, like you miss the red flags, or like you think you love somebody because you're joining your bodies together. So maybe if more of us didn't do that, it would be easier to know when you actually love somebody and when you don't.
What? Are you saying that we shouldn't be having like consequence-free sex with people? What? That's ridiculous. No, absolutely. And then there's a physiological component to that too, right? If this is the first time you're ever hearing the word oxytocin, I really encourage you to look that up, right? Basically, that's the bonding chemical, right? That's produced primarily during breastfeeding and sex, right? It is meant to bond humans to one another. And it's almost as if both sex and breastfeeding are meant to be done by people who are going to be bound to each other for the rest of their lives, like mothers to their children and spouses, right, to one another. And when we spit in the face of nature and the design that we have for human relationships, it's almost like it's bad for us. I don't know. That's my crazy hot take.
That's a pretty hot take for honest to God.
No, that was really good. Any other thoughts? Then let's dive in. Let's go a step further. All right. For whatever reason, we have decided that this relationship is not working out. Right. We've been dating, and because the theme, I guess, is broken heart, we're going to say we've been dating for a while, or we've got a pretty, serious case of intimacy and bonding with one another. I want to make it really, really clear that I'm not saying that any of this is a problem with humans. I'm saying that this is just a consequence of human nature, right? We have these broken hearts. I don't know. The theme is how do we heal those? So how do we heal those? What does that look like?
I would say that the first step, which I feel like is so, so important, and the reason we don't see a lot of healing is because people always tend to skip over this, would be forgiving yourself, because you have to admit that you made yourself vulnerable in that moment. You stepped out of your like comfort zone and you allowed yourself to love somebody, and it didn't necessarily turn out how you wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just carry that with you, and you never like take a moment to be like, maybe even though this didn't end properly, maybe I benefited somewhere. Like if you're worthy of God's forgiveness, how can you not forgive yourself for this moment in time? So I think people just skip over that sometimes and like forgive the other person or move on to somebody else to get over it. And when you skip that first step, like there's not a good foundation and the rest is rocky.
Well, and the idea of forgiveness is not an emotion, right? Forgiveness, like love, is a movement of the will. It's a decision that you make regarding yourself. So there are a lot of people in my life that I have forgiven that I still struggle with resentment and frustration towards, including myself, by the way. Like I've forgiven myself for a lot of things that still really bother me and eat me up. But it is like an intellectual assent to, no, I've forgiven myself for that. I'm not going to allow myself to just sort of wallow and fester in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, and it sounds so cheesy, but like we've said 100 times, right? Cheesy is almost always wholesome and good in real life once we strip away our own cynicism and our own jadedness and everything. I think a lot of that has to do with realizing what our identity is rooted in, which is ultimately Christ, right? And it's not ultimately another person. I think it's a lack of emotional chastity and sort of using another person as an emotional crutch that can lead to that broken heart, which once again does not make you evil or bad because you do that. It makes you a person. And I would love to dig into that a little bit if anybody has any thoughts on how we prevent our sense of identity and self being rooted in our significant other even after the relationship is over. What do you think?
That's a tough one.
I know, but Nini's got great thoughts, so I'm ready.
Why? Why do you do this to me?
You kill it every time, Nini. That's why.
I don't know. I think that it's just really is knowing your worth. But I think like kind of piggybacking off what you said, like with forgiveness and everything, I also think that instead of just kind of diving into like another relationship or just seeing someone else or the potential of something else, I think it's also grieving that relationship because like you're ending something that you thought was going to be like your person, your forever person. And you have to let yourself grieve because you're getting through like a new routine. Because like for me, it was wake up, text the guy that I was dating, talk to him when I got home, go on like weekly date night. Mm-hmm. So now like I ended that relationship. Now is a whole entire new routine. I don't have that person anymore. So I think it's grieving that it's okay to lose that person, but it's also okay to know your worth, and that's why you're ending something, is because you know you deserve better than that as well. Because for me, when I was going through that, my mindset was, like, I am a princess, I am a child of God, and so why am I gonna allow myself to be so upset? I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna grieve, but also like know my worth. It's more than that too. Well,
okay, but that sounds great, right? Like know your worth, but what does that mean? How do I do that practically? Like, are there steps to that? Give me some. How do I grow in my understanding of my own worth? Because I agree with what you're saying. I just, practically speaking, not sure how to put it into practice.
So for personal experience, because I went through this like 2 years ago, like I was dating this guy. He was like, we went through the steps. Like we were talking about like engagement. We were talking of like, we were looking at rings and everything. And then it was like, wow, like this is actually going to happen. I went on a trip thinking I was going to get engaged. Mm-hmm. Found out was not gonna get engaged. Mm-hmm. And I was so upset about it. And like we fought for months. And it was like we fought for the last 6 months of us being together, and it sucked. Right. And I think it was like funny enough, my youth minister passed away that same year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Like I call her Chrissy Chris. I'm like, Chrissy Chris, like if he's not for me, like let me know now, and I will be okay with it. And I was like, if this is for you, this is your plan, like, I'll be okay with it. And funny enough, we got into a fight, and he was like, I know she passed away and everything, but you have to get over it. I'm like, oh, well, that was a sign. Mm-hmm. And so it really was just like grieving. And then I honestly went to adoration more than I ever did. And it was really just like finding myself in the Eucharist and just praying the entire time. And I think I've never found more peace in the plan that God set for me until like that relationship ended. And also it was like a nice big weight off my shoulders. Did I cry? Plenty of times, yes. And I think grieving and healing comes in waves because like this relationship ended 2 years ago and I still like, I'm sad about it, but I'm not sad I miss him. I'm sad at like the potential of like what it could have been at one point.
I like what you said about letting yourself grieve. I talked about this in the last episode, but for a long time I was just a serial monogamist. I so found my sense of self in the person that I was dating, right? Which is disordered, right? And if you can't understand who you are separate from this other person, then that's an unhealthy relationship. That's a relationship of use, right? That's utilitarian, and that's evil. That's bad. So no, I absolutely hear that. Other thoughts, Julian? I'm putting you on the spot, brother. I want to
Put me on the spot. That's fine. Now, my broken heart, as well as my wife's, was much more extreme, and in fact, in a way that we are absolutely not designed to be able to handle. Divorce is very evil. Enterprise. I mean, I don't think any of us are really designed to have a broken heart. That's just, as you said, the nature of.
Can you define what that
fallen
is?
World.
What a broken heart is? We throw that word around, but it's not being sad necessarily. That might be a symptom of it, right? But I feel like it's deeper than that.
Feeling like a piece of you is missing.
Oh, okay.
Or torn.
Okay.
Torn. Or missing.
Right.
But I know for me that a lot of my healing journey came from finding the Holy Spirit and leaning in on the faith. Now, we probably don't want to get into the whole healing part yet. But with divorce, one of the things you don't even realize is like with ours, I had a great relationship with everybody in her family. So that comes with it. Her siblings and their significant others, and then her cousins. I mean, it extended out so far, the ripple effects of the broken heart that I experienced.
Right.
And then I know the same for you, just with my uncle, my parents, my siblings. I don't want to talk into what you experienced there, but divorce is, I think it's much deeper than people even realize when they go through it. They're just like, oh, we're fighting, we're done, and we got to end it.
Right.
And it's much easier when it's before that whole marriage thing has happened.
Right. No, absolutely. And I feel like going back to what Leah was saying earlier, a lot of times that the sort of the loss and the sense of a piece of yourself missing is exacerbated even in non-married relationships, because we have so many relationships now where people are cohabitating, or they're fornicating, or they're playing house with one another. They're acting like they're married. You guys actually were married, but they're acting like they're married, and then they just break up. And it's just a breakup, but it's a breakup with somebody who you lived with and were having sex with and had this really deep relationship where our whole body, our soul, right, both physically and immaterially, right, our everything is oriented towards binding with this other person in the sacramental bond, and we're living as if we are, but we're not. And then we break up and we don't understand why it feels so much more real than when you break up with somebody in high school because it
wasn't working out. Right. Yeah.
No, so I agree with what you said. Mainly because my parents got divorced. So I think it's important to acknowledge that heartbreak comes in many different ways. You can break your own heart. And divorce is just one of those big ones because if you look at it from the child's perspective, that was like your example of love. So if you grew up like 20 years of your life and that's what love's supposed to be like divorce and like marrying the wrong person in general has become so normalized now that we don't even realize the spiral effect it creates. So like, yeah, this one couple got divorced, but now you may have created like a couple of children who go chasing after that same thing they grew up around. Now here's these children like creating another relationship. Like he's looking for somebody like his mother. She's looking for somebody like her father, stuff like that. And then it's just like a ripple effect constantly. So it's kind of hard to get somebody without a faith life to understand that, because like, oh, it's divorce. People get divorced. Like you married the wrong person. But it's such a long lasting effect. Like
it is such a generational.
And we're sitting here talking, oh, how to heal a heartbreak. Like, yeah, you can say that, But so like sometimes you can get used to that heartbreak, but sometimes it breaks open over and over and over again. You think you healed, and then 20 years later you're walking down the street and you see something that you remember from when you were 4 years old, and it just breaks all over again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, it's interesting what you said about the impact on others, right? Especially when you're talking about divorce. And we don't only have to talk about divorce, but that's obviously something that I think needs to be addressed because of how prevalent that is. Or I guess divorce and relationship or breakups that are also basically divorces, right? Even though they're not the sacramental bond, like I said earlier, people sort of living together, and the impact that it has not just on the couple, but on everyone involved, from children to family members to friends. You said something, Leah, a minute ago that I wanted you to expand on a little bit. You said you can break your own heart. What does that mean?
So basically, well, I'm just going to go off of personal experience. So me, like after the beginning of my conversion, when I sat down and I started like learning about like specific sin or like secular life and everything, I looked back at a time when I was like a teenager, and I realized like the things that I did to like the ways I twisted myself to like fit everybody else's like version of myself that they wanted me to be, and my heart broke because I didn't allow myself to just be a girl. Like I grew up so fast. Like I didn't get to just do like the, you know, like the little daddy daughter things. Like I wanted to be liked, and I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to fit in. That like over the years I could see like different versions of me, and none of them I was proud of. And I can pinpoint the times where, yeah, this person did this to me, but I allowed it, I encouraged it, I let it happen. So sometimes like my heart does break again because I was like, I could have just been a girl. I could have just, you know, done the fun things. I didn't have to be cool or mysterious or sexy or anything. All the stuff that was getting pushed on me, I could have rejected it, and I didn't let it happen. And it breaks my heart because that trickles down, you know. And if you want to go anywhere in life, you have to heal that first. So
well, and that goes back to forgiving yourself, right? And realizing once again that we're all that sort of brokenness that we have, and that constant desire to be loved, and all those masks that we wear for the sake of attention and affection, and just being thought of as good enough, right? All these fake things that we do that cover up our true selves until we don't even know who we are, right? In a lot of ways. We really do have to sort of dig through that, and it hurts. It's really difficult. I don't mean to end on a super depressing note, but we are going to go to a break right now, and we're going to pick right back up here in a minute. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. You're listening to Honest to God. Before we get started, make sure you go to your local dealership right now in 1987 and pick up a brand new DeLorean. This episode of Honest to God is brought to you by the 1987 DeLorean, as featured in Back to the Future Parts 1, 2, and 3. There were no more, right? They didn't drive that.
They didn't
drive it into the ground. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
And I really hope they don't bring it back.
I heard that they were definitely not going to do that.
Yeah, they better not.
Like, because it's like one of the only cool movies that they didn't ruin.
I recently rewatched the Back to the Future, in the last week.
Excellent.
They're so great.
I just watched the original Back to the Future like a few days ago. That's when I learned about Emily Wilson's dad.
But I was thinking about the fact that if they redid it nowadays, it would totally be like an HBO series.
Yeah.
And like every episode they'd go to a different like time period and have to fix something.
It'd be lame.
And it'd be so lame.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
You know, speaking of Back to the Future, do you remember how Marty McFly did not have a relationship with his mother when he went back to the past? Do you remember when they kissed in the car and then she was like, ooh, that's like kissing my brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes that happens in relationships, and then people break up and people's hearts are broken. And I'd like to pick up there with this episode of Honest to God. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. John Henry Spann, Harvard for Segways.
Harvard for Segways.
All my friends call me the Muhammad Ali of Segways. Constantly being called that.
I have heard that before and called you that many times.
Yeah. Yes. Mass for short. They call me Muhammad Ali of Segways.
We just go, what up, Mass?
Yeah.
And then
it was great. And I point, it's like a thing. And then I usually give a segue to what I want to talk about. And today what I want to talk about is heartbreak. So let's take the mood back down a little bit and talk about.
We left on such a
We were over the downer note,
tense note.
but we're back now.
Thank you for listening.
After those commercials and pitch for a 1987 DeLorean. So, off air, we were talking about different types of heartbreak, and I would love to dig into that. I mean, somebody floated that idea. I'm not even. You good, Ben?
I'm recovering.
From heartbreak.
Heartbreak.
Okay,
Ben.
that checks out.
And I'd like to get into that a little bit. What does that mean? How are there different types of heartbreak? Some people talked about how it's not just necessarily a romantic heartbreak, but
It's best
somebody goes,
friends. Like, you can be best friends with somebody for so long, and then y'all can have a breakup, and that's probably worse than breaking up with your significant other. I'm sorry. Because like your best friend is there for you through everything. They know like all like your deepest, darkest secrets and baggage. And one day it's like, oops, sorry, breaking up, can't be your friend anymore. And then boom, no longer a best friend. It's the saddest thing
That's
ever.
really sad, Nene.
I'm telling you, I don't think I've ever cried as much through a breakup than when one of my best friends and I when we stopped being friends. We're friends now. Like we had that little time apart was really good for us,
Right.
but
Took a break.
yeah, I took a break but that breakup
Made
was
friends with
so
other
bad.
people. Yeah.
Wasn't worth it.
Yeah, no, but I do think that speaks to the issue here that is deeper than just romantic loss and more about the importance of human intimacy, right? And how we are made to be creatures in community and we're made for intimacy with other human beings. Sometimes that's intimate, sometimes that's not. And you know, we ascribe the word heartbreak to it. And I don't think that it always has to, that it requires a romantic sort of connotation. What else? Are there other types of heartbreak? I mean, I'm learning things today, aside from friendship and romantic relationship.
Anyone that you're
Yeah.
close to.
Mhm.
Anyone, like your family can break your heart too.
Does grieving over a death count as a heartbreak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can still feel like a piece of you is missing if someone you love died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And if you're having a hard time figuring out who you are after that person dies, then
Yeah.
that's definitely a heartbreak.
Yeah, I really like. I know that I keep sort of beating this dead horse, but the definition of heartbreak is still something that I'm interested in, right? Because when I saw the title of the show today, when I arrived here in Sydney, Australia, where we are filming, and got off the plane and saw, we're doing a show on heartbreak today, I immediately assumed, we're only going to be talking about bad breakups and stuff like that, right? And we're going to, right? There's a lot more of that to come. But this idea of no, it is when people who are important to us are no longer in our lives, regardless of the circumstances. And I don't know, it's widened out my understanding of heartbreak a little bit.
Could also be a goldfish, a gerbil,
Could it?
a dog.
Okay, well,
Dog.
it could obviously be a dog.
Yeah. No.
I'm not adding the gerbil and goldfish on the same level. I have, when my dog died, it was worse than pretty much any sort of like heartbreak of any other kind that I've ever had. And maybe that's disordered, but I'm also kind of okay with it. Like I love that dog. All right. Let's focus more on the whole human thing and get into that. Nene, you said off air that you were willing or open to sharing a story.
Yeah. So I dated this guy for 2 years and things were going great. We had that conversation at 6 months was like, okay, where do you see this going? And stuff like that. And then the conversation at the year and a half mark was okay. So like we've been dating for a year and a half. Like my goal is like, I want to be engaged soon. I want to get married, all the good stuff that girls want. And he was on the same page as me. And so we ended up going ring shopping together. I was so excited. Like, oh my gosh, ring shopping. Woo. And then I got my nails done for our trip to Vegas and everything. Cause my parents went to a wedding in California. And then the guy I was dating at the time, my brother, we flew to Vegas and my godmother was coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people are coming. I got my nails done so pretty. They were engagement worthy nails. I'm like, I'm going to get engaged. Oh my gosh. We bought for the entire weekend.
Oh,
While we were there.
Okay.
And then it kind of spiraled down there because the last 6 months of us dating, we literally fought every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more just like, so I put on his face, I'm like, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough. Like,
thought about what? Are you comfortable saying? Just anything? Just everything?
Just everything. Like he would always come over to my house, have dinner with my family. And at one point it was, I'm too tired from work.
Mm-hmm.
And him and my mom worked together. So I was like, Mom, like, how was it busy? She's like, no, like he went out to eat with his friends. I'm like, oh, okay, so it started to like escalate from like lying to like he was tired, and then we just didn't talk on the phone anymore. So we just fought every other week.
Can I mention something real quick?
Yeah.
A big tail sign for that. I know you mentioned earlier, I don't know if you mind me saying this or not, but infidelity. So basically what I've noticed is whenever a man starts putting energy into another woman, for some reason, I don't know why, I can't pinpoint it, but he'll become mean to you, even if you're not doing anything. So you're going to spend months of like trying to figure out, why is he so upset with me? What's wrong with me? What am I not doing? It's not you. He's pouring energy into somebody else. So now he doesn't have enough for you and you're just getting on his nerves.
It's funny you say that.
Those arguments come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Look around.
Well, he also was like, well, like, you're cheating on me with someone else. And I was just that was a sign.
Sure.
Like,
That's a big one too.
I didn't see that because like when I was so in love with him. I thought he was my person. And so my blinders were on. I didn't realize this till like after the relationship ended. And so we ended up breaking up, and like after the breakup, I found out that he cheated on me for 6 months. We were fighting.
Had been sort of continuously.
Yes. So after we had, but funny enough, we broke up, and then I went on a girls trip to Nashville and everything. I'm like, I need like a girls like post breakup trip. Didn't work. Cut my hair. Besides the point. Went on a post girls trip, and then he actually came to my house, still dating this girl. Came to my house and was like, talked to my dad and said, "Can you talk to Nene to give me another chance?" And my mom calls me. She was like, "Yeah, he's here now. He wants to get back with you." I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" And then he would send me flowers to work. And I actually made a TikTok video of this. I'm not ashamed of it. I made a TikTok video of it, and it was like to like never getting back together by Taylor Swift. And I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get back together," and I threw his flowers in the trash. But that happened, and even like that was 2 years ago, and like I'm healed now, but sometimes like it kind of creeps back, and I'll start crying every now and then, because it's more of like he was my person, and I'm like, if I was worthy of like this love, like why would he do that to me? Right. And that's like PTSD. That's like creeping to relationship now.
Well, and it's also the devil. Right.
Yeah.
Of saying like, oh, see, you weren't good enough. Like, so
yeah. And that's like, I struggle with that every single day. And it's like, I have to remind myself that like, my boyfriend now, it's not my ex.
Right.
And it's just like PTSD that I'm still healing from. And I'm like, I feel bad for my boyfriend because I'm just like, you're not my ex. Like, I know that. I'm sorry. But it's just like, I'm healing. And it's still like a healing process every day.
Those mindsets, right, become habitual. And you bring that in. I've said before on this show and on some talks I've given and stuff that one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of conversion stories or telling my own conversion story, I guess more not conversion stories, redemption stories, is I feel like they sell the false idea that you have to like dance with the devil a little bit before you can have an authentic, like really come into your faith and understand yourself, which is a lie. But also, because when I look back at my own redemption story, quote unquote redemption story, all I see is a lot of lies that I told myself that are still like eating at me a little bit. And that's the devil. He's opened up this little path to my heart to irritate it. Right. And I have to work day in and day out to overcome those habits and those mindsets that are a detriment to me. They're lies from the devil, and moving past that. Yeah. So yeah, Julian.
Now, I don't want you to take this as a criticism because you're awesome. I want to throw out there that I think traveling together when you're in a relationship can be very dangerous. And it should be exercised with the utmost caution, especially when you said it was a family trip.
It was my parents went to California, and then it was more like we were all meeting up together, and we were visiting my mom's best friend that lived in Vegas. Okay. And also seeing my godmother too, because I didn't know she was coming until we bought the ticket. And it was because flying to Vegas is it's not cheap sometimes, and I think tickets were like $200.
Right.
So we're just like, oh, let's go.
Yeah. I think if a group of friends is all going together, and you make sure that there's separate living arrangements during something, but families to another location all going together. If you go to somebody's house, that's one thing. But yeah, I've noticed that other relationships of friends that I've seen have ended on family trips.
Oh, that's interesting.
Family trips
specifically family trips. Yeah.
And what do you think it is? Is there a theory behind that? What do you?
That would be something I can't articulate. I think there's a certain vulnerability that especially the woman is gonna, if she's around her family, that wants to get to, but then feels a little trapped, and then might feel a little smothered because she wants to take care of you because you're uncomfortable. and it just creates this unpleasant feeling that could lead to a premature breakup or an inappropriate breakup.
I think a big thing I see a lot of people struggle with is romanticizing things. Like, you know, if these two families are going on this trip and you went ring shopping, of course we're gonna naturally think, oh, this is the big trip, this is where it comes, and that kind of trickles over into being in a relationship that you should have left. A lot of girls I've noticed, they think they're in love with their boyfriend, so it breaks their heart when he leaves, and I kind of have to tell him, like, girl, I've been there. You weren't in love with him. You were in love with the idea of him that you had in your head. Sure. That's not who he really is. That's what you thought you could bring him up to your standards to be, and there's where that heartbreak, like, it starts all over again.
Well, and this keeps coming up, but that goes back to emotional chastity too, which is you have to, we have to practice emotional chastity. And it's so hard. I find, especially in like the Catholic world, people who actually care and are trying and whatever, it's a lot easier to, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's easier to deal with the physical chastity as opposed to the emotional chastity, especially if you're in good groups of people who are like, hey, no, we're going to do this. Hey man, I know that's hard, but you're going to hold the line from a physical chastity standpoint. But then the guy, well, usually the girl is the one who struggles with it more, starts all of the sort of fantasizing about this life and this marriage and this man and all this. And all of a sudden we're behaving in a way, right, that is inappropriate given our station in life and our relationship.
Yeah. So I feel like everything's tied together. So where you're going to see that the most from is from people who grew up in a home that wasn't like that perfect picket fence. So you have this drive to like, oh, this relationship that I'm in now, it has to be perfect because I have to prove to everybody that I'm not what I came from.
Sure.
And then if somehow y'all make it through that and you have children and you continue a bad relationship in front of them, that can trickle down into those children. Because normally people do one of two things. They either become what they saw or they're nothing like what they saw. And it's kind of uncontrollable. So it's a constant cycle. So
you mentioned sort of your girls' trip to Nashville and everything afterwards, which made me think of something else we talked about before during the break, which was healthy versus unhealthy post-breakup activities. And I'm not making a judgment on your girls' trip to Nashville. I've had many a breakup when I've said, all right, we're all going to go drink beer now and go on a tubing trip down this river. And
funny enough, I didn't even drink that much for that trip. I was kind of like the mom for that trip, I'm being honest. It was like, oh, cool, I'm out. I'm at the bars with my friends. Yeah, no, I kind of played mom the entire time.
Oh, and I'm not criticizing your Nashville trip. That might have been the best idea in the world.
Nashville, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, but I want to say, let's dig into what that looks like. Healthy post-breakup activities versus unhealthy post-breakup activities. I actually think one of the best things you can probably do post-breakup is re-solidify those friendships you have with people that have no romantic connotations at all. With your girlfriends if you're a girl, with your guy friends if you're a guy, and remind yourself that no, I'm not dependent on this other human being. They're not this emotional crutch that I have been using them as, if that's the case or whatever, right? There are other people in my life and my identity is not inextricably tied to this other person.
Yeah.
What else? This will be more fun. What are some unhealthy post-breakup activities?
Cutting your hair, because my hair was my hair was like a really pretty, like, it's hard to get my hair to be like a nice ashy gray color. It takes forever. So when my hair was like down like to my waist, I cut it up to my shoulders, and I went like a nice coppery brown. And I instantly regret cutting my hair.
Why do girls do that? Why do they get haircuts and do all the treat yourself stuff?
Person they were
when
that hurt happened. At least for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, and there may be a different side to that. I think it's less about what you do and more about the intentions of what you do.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, if you go in there thinking, oh, I need to get my hair cut off because if you tell yourself, oh, I just want to change, but really it's because you want something different so you can see if this works out better for you, or maybe you get a better outcome now that you have this new hair color, or maybe he'll see you post it and like slide up. The problem was never that he thought you were attractive. He just didn't respect you. So making yourself more attractive is not going to make him. It's not going to fix him.
I always assumed it was done like the opposite end. I always thought it was like, well, now I'm gonna make sure that I look real good for everybody else to make.
Do that too.
Yeah, it's sneaky.
Yeah, I cut my hair because he liked my long hair, so I cut it super short.
Yeah.
My crappy guy thing that I used to always do, once again, sort of being the serial monogamist is if I broke up with a girl on a Thursday, I was gonna have a date on Saturday.
That's
I was like
toxic.
gonna do it. I was gonna make sure. And it, like, looking back, it was because of the sick. Like, no, I need to make sure that I remind myself that I build myself up as I'm a desirable guy, and ladies are interested in me, and I didn't need her anyway. Right? It's gross. So anyway, that was my assumption with the getting yourself all dolled up again. Not knocking getting yourself dolled up. I'm just saying. What else? Unhealthy. Somebody said something about texting earlier.
Keeping in contact.
Stay away from alcohol.
Yeah.
What's that?
Stay away from alcohol.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good one.
I think strip clubs are probably very unhealthy all the time.
Yeah, I would agree. Regardless of circumstances, you shouldn't go there.
But there's definitely a temptation there.
Who said staying in contact? Wasn't that one of you guys?
I said don't stay in contact.
Okay, I totally agree. But
and I know that can be hard because, like, oh, we were friends before or whatever. But, like, while it's fresh, like, you know, treat everything with a certain level of sensitivity. Like, even whatever you do to get over it. Like, I know a lot of people will think, like, oh, like, I never felt good, so I never went out with my girls while we were together. But now that I feel good, I'm going out with my girls, whatever. You might go out to the bar. But if you really think about it, oh, yeah, it's good. You're finally getting out the house again. But now you're in a bar and there's alcohol, people are dancing, like it's just very lustful, people are hitting on you, like which those are things you normally can like control when you're in your normal state of mind, but maybe when you just lost somebody you thought was the love of your life, you might be a little sensitive right now. So maybe go out to get coffee or something if you want to go out with your girls.
Well, and knowing yourself plays such a huge role in that too. Is that a temptation for you? Right. As somebody who, you know, before I got married, struggled with pornography in a serious way, like a breakup or something, that would be an immediate trigger for something like that. And avoiding those near occasions of sin and knowing our own weakness, which once again, that it doesn't make you bad or broken because you struggle with that. It makes you a person. You just have to be aware of those.
Yeah. So just treating it with that sensitivity. Like if you know something's going to set you off, maybe steer away from that until you feel like you're comfortable enough to dive back into that again.
If you need to go take care of that baby, Rachel, by the way, you are welcome to go do it. And those of you who can't, don't have their volume turned up all the way, might not be able to hear Rachel's wonderful son, who's very small and very upset right now. So no worries if you need to go out and do it. So on the flip side of that, what about what should we do? What's the healthy thing to do? I just broke up with my longtime girlfriend or boyfriend, and I am really disheartened right now and feel like crap. What should I do?
That was what I wanted to talk about. I'll say it real quick.
Baby
so
was
I can
fine.
go get my baby.
Yeah, I think he got quiet.
We'll see how long that lasts. It took me a really long time. This is what I was most excited to talk about doing this show. Like into my 30s probably because I have been experiencing heartbreak my whole life. I kind of feel like, not just from you, other people too. So. Especially when I was a teenager and like early 20s, it kind of just felt like heartbreak was just a regular part of my life.
Right.
And of course, at that time when I was young, it was a lot of feeling sorry for myself and wallowing and feeling like I'm not good enough and all the normal immature things. One thing that I started doing a lot when we split up was I would pray for him a lot. Like I would pray that we would get back together, but I would pray specifically for him because I'm like, the person who he is now is not the person I married. So I pray that he finds his way. Figures this all out. And that's just kind of something I've continued to do with other people in my life who have, I feel like, caused heartbreak too. Is I just pray for them, try to understand them. And I found what has helped me the most is putting myself in their shoes. Even if I feel like what they have done is something I would never be capable of doing. Or I don't understand, I would at least try.
That's super hard.
It's very hard. And that's why I said it took me into my 30s. But I feel like I have progressed so much and just come such a long way. You know, some of those relationships, I don't talk to them anymore, but I still pray for them and I still try to understand why they did what they did. Others, I do have a relationship with them now and it's just improved. One person in particular, I don't really want to say who it is.
Please don't. No names,
But never really had a great relationship with him my entire life. And I feel like only just these past few years, I've started to have a better relationship with him. It's not great, but it's worlds better than it was when I was growing up. And I feel like a lot of that was me just trying to understand him and putting my pride aside and being like, well, no, he did all these terrible things to me throughout my whole childhood. Like, trying to figure out what really the root of it all was and trying to understand him as a person. And because of that, I feel like I'm able to heal from a lot of the heartbreak I experienced.
And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of that comes with maturity too. It's almost like just time. You just need time for a lot of these things.
Yeah, that's why it took me as long as it did.
Right. No, I think that's great. I'd love to dig in now in the time we have remaining to what the actual healing, like be more specific and purposeful about what actual healing looks like. And I know, Julian, you wanted to touch on that.
Do you want me to go ahead with that?
Yeah.
Or okay,
We
nobody
got like
else?
5 minutes left. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, at least at this point in my life, and obviously if you're going through a heartbreak now, this isn't what you want to hear. But this is a wide open door for you to enter into something in a realm of your life that you didn't even know existed. This is a time to stop and just look in the mirror. And my wife said great things. Pray for those who have hurt you.
But this is the time, you mean, now that you're experiencing this heartbreak after the fact.
Yes, if you're in a heartbreak, you are in a prime opportunity to grow in beyond ways that you had no idea was even imaginable. Look in the mirror, figure out, how can I improve my prayer life? How can I improve my faith? Go to confession yesterday. That pretty much needs to be the first thing you do. Spend time with the Lord. Adoration. Try and dedicate 10 minutes a week. You're hearing, an hour, that's too long. Start with 10 minutes, then go to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and watch how much your life can change in a course of 6 months after going through probably one of the most painful things that you've experienced. And it can feel a lot like purgatory in ways. And to me, dying to yourself kind of can begin right there. So if we want to talk about defining a heartbreak, it is an opportunity to die to yourself and to really fall into the love of Jesus.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love that.
And that's something we have to remember too, is that the sacraments are efficacious, right? They actually do a thing, right? It's not just tied up in the emotions, regardless of whether or not you feel anything, right? Grace is transferred through the sacraments, and going to them does help, and it does bring healing, and it does help get us back on the right track, right? It's a free gift from our Creator, and it's something that we have to take advantage of, and something that we have to get over the fact that we don't always feel magically better after going to confession or receiving the Eucharist. Sometimes we do, and that's fantastic, right? But sometimes we don't, and we shouldn't need it, because we have to have this understanding that whether or not we feel it, it's real and things are happening in us. Yeah, it's really great.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you burn yourself on the stove. It's going to hurt, but you generally did it to teach yourself a lesson. Hey, careful, don't touch the stove, because you're going to get burned. And there's probably something that happened in the relationship that probably burned you pretty bad.
Right. So anybody have any closing thoughts on any of that before we get into? I do want to do something light to end this show with some loaded questions or popsicle sticks or something. But any final thoughts on anything?
One quick thing that I was thinking of whenever he spoke, just to kind of basically sum that up. I think it's so important when you're hurting that bad, it can be easy to forget about God, to just kind of wallow in your self-pity, but you want to be extra careful to allow him to be in this experience with you, so you don't lose sight of your faith. I just think that's super important, to not try to exclude him out of it, because that healing is going to be, you're really not going to heal until you hit that point where you're like, okay, I've been leaving you out of this, I welcome you in, and let's get through it. From the jump, know that everything happened, everything's going to play out how it's supposed to. You never know what you learned in that relationship that you might need for your marriage one day, just whoever you are supposed to be with, or whatever the case may be. So just keep God involved throughout the whole thing.
Well, and not wallowing. I like how you said that, right? Because we have such a tendency to turn inward in those difficult times.
Because you do deserve a time to sulk in it. You can. And that's emotion, and we're human.
But you can't give yourself over to that entirely, and you can't feel like I'm all alone.
Right.
And once again, the feelings, you have to remember that the feelings aren't what actually matters. And I don't know about for the ladies out there, but for the gentlemen, a big piece of that is doing things. Go out and do a thing. Don't sit around your house all day in front of the computer staring at YouTube videos, right? Go do something, whatever that is. Go for a walk in the woods, dig a hole.
I suggest rock climbing.
Yeah,
there we go. I was just
Comment below your favorite thing to do when you're hurting.
There you go.
Yeah. But seriously, I think that, and with so many things in my life, I have some of the best advice I've ever gotten is like, you need to go do something right now. Like, even if it's not something that is either good or neutral, right?
Yeah.
But anything other than just wallowing, right? Go fishing. Go see if you can canoe down that river you wanted to canoe down, or climb that tree like you're 11 years old, right? Go do a thing outside in the real world. Touch grass and experience reality, right? Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. Well, I think we just ran out of time, but why not do
Loaded questions real quick. Let's do it.
We're gonna do popsicle sticks. We
What?
never do popsicle sticks. Yeah,
Oh my
they're always
gosh.
here.
It's been
we never do them.
months.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, we flew these popsicle sticks all the way out here to Sydney, Australia. You can see you can actually see the Opera House right behind that Quest banner that we put up over the window, which is pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
Thank you, John Henry.
All right, Nina, you want to start?
Yeah. Have you ever been trapped in an elevator? No, but that is my irrational fear. I actually, we went to California for my grandma's funeral like a few weeks ago, and we were going to get the rental car. We had to go to an elevator to get the rental car, and it just stopped for a quick second. I'm like, I'm stuck here. I'm gonna die, and then it started working again. So I've never been trapped, but that's a big irrational fear of mine.
When I'm bored, sometimes I watch YouTube videos of the fake elevator pranks where they act like they're stuck and then the lights flicker and like someone crawls through a false door. And have you seen these? They're really
no,
good.
but I would start crying.
Act
That
like
was
they're
me.
a ghost or something. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, it's very good.
All right. Mine says, have you ever pulled an all-nighter? Plenty of times in high school, but a more interesting one. I used to work night shift at this warehouse, and I'd have the weekends off, so I would get off at like 3 in the morning, like Friday morning. I work Thursday night into Friday morning, get off at 3 in the morning, drive from Alabama to Georgia to see Hannah. We'd go do something. At that point, I'd been up too long to like even be able to fall asleep. So I wouldn't end up going to sleep until like Saturday morning.
Right.
So up from like 6 p.m.
It's worth
Thursday
it. You
to
get to hang out with
Saturday.
Hannah,
Yeah. Yeah. And we just go all weekend, and then I'd go back to work Sunday night.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Well, thank God I got out of those days.
Mine is, would you rather be a cow or a chicken?
Oh,
Ooh,
wait, why have we
heavy
never gotten that one
question.
before?
I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, there is a right
And
answer.
I love the question, and there is one right answer, but they're both food. But obviously, a cow can feed way more people. It can also.
Wait, you want to be a cow so that more people can eat you? Is that what you just said?
Well, it says, "Would you rather be a cow or chicken?" And their purpose is to serve the humans, which then ultimately is to become their energy source. So
Oh, see,
absolutely,
I
I do
mean,
want to be
I
a
took
cow.
it
What if
totally
they never
different.
get
I was
killed?
thinking about like Sumatran jungle fowl or something versus like, like wild cattle. I was thinking like if I get to live the rest of my life as a cow, like in the wild, or a chicken. That's interesting. Okay.
Well, that's fair, but
Sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
I mean, even I think by your logic there, I'd choose chicken because like a cow, it's one go and that's it. That's all the food. But a chicken's like an infinitely producing.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to be a
Cows
female
have-
chicken.
cows have milk.
Yeah,
And I definitely don't want to be a female chicken. I mean, yeah, I guess a rooster.
Okay, but
A rooster would be.
No, yeah.
because they don't get.
I was going to go
Wait,
with
are
my
there-
right answer was rooster. I would love to be a rooster.
I don't are there,
They have one
I don't mean
job.
to sound dumb, but are there male cows? I thought they were bulls.
No, I think cow is the species,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and,
Right, I
and then
think, yeah.
females are cows and
Okay.
males are bulls.
Right, right.
Yeah, I would rather be a rooster because I've raised a ton of chickens, and the roosters have the best life in the world. They're good for two things, right? Number one is fertilizing eggs, and number two is heroic, beautiful last stands against overwhelming odds, where they fight and die, where they fight and or kill or die fighting off animals trying to kill the hens. It's a cool life.
We had a bunch of chickens when I was a kid, and one batch we had this one rooster that was like the tiniest rooster
Yeah.
I'd ever seen, and he thought he was the most macho
Yes.
thing ever. None of the hens did though.
Okay.
None of the hens respected him in any way, but he was always like pushing himself up to the front and like defending them.
Good for
and
him.
it was really cool.
I had a bunch of roosters one time, and we had too many roosters, right? And so I had to kill a bunch of roosters, and I had a bunch of bantams, like little guys. And so Henry, my son, was running around the yard with a net, catching the roosters, bringing them over to me, and I was killing the roosters, and they were going to be stew birds, right? And I had one who I saw him. He would watch what was going on, and then he would run and hide every time Henry would pull the net out. Meanwhile, the other ones were just kind of clucking around. Henry would scoop them up. And every time I would kill one, right, not to be graphic, but I'd break their neck, slit their throat, and I'd throw them over in a pile.
Right, of course.
And
Naturally.
that rooster would run from its hiding spot, jump on the dead, neck broken, bleeding to death rooster, and just peck it, and then take off running again. And afterwards, like, we thought this was so funny, we decided to spare its life. We named him Kevin. And Kevin was our little Bantam rooster. I had 2 roosters for a while. One was this tiny one named Kevin. The other's name was Death Machine 3000. Who you might have met Death Machine 3000 if you ever went over to my house. He was a beautiful giant rooster. And Kevin ran that roost. He beat up the big rooster. He was the champ. And it was because this stage in his life when he watched all the other ones die, he thought he killed them because he ran over and pecked them, and he wasn't messing with us. So anyway, I would rather be Kevin. If I could be a cow or rooster, I choose Kevin.
You choose Kevin.
Yeah, every
Cool.
time.
It's a good answer, I think. Mine is, have you ever had a near-death experience?
Ooh.
Yes,
Okay.
I have. It was the first time, and if you're a long-time listener, then you know I've dislocated my knees 16 times.
This episode.
Yes, this episode. While you've been watching. If you hear subtly in the background, you hear me going, ah! Every couple minutes.
We'll be at 17, yeah.
I was donned the name Janky Knee at a beach retreat. John Henry.
Yep.
Hannah was there too. Yeah. And this was also at a beach, funny enough, was
Okay.
the first time I dislocated my knee. I was out in the water and I got hit by a wave and it knocked me over and dislocated my knee. And then at that point, I couldn't stand up and I was then being pulled out to sea.
Oh, no.
Like, so in excruciating pain, being pulled out to sea, like calling out for my parents who were on the beach, them not believing, thinking I was like playing
goodness.
or
Okay.
like playing it up, and then me getting out of the water, traumatized at this point, having to carry myself up to our hotel room with one working leg, and them just thinking I was, playing it up for attention.
Like, I feel like
It was
you
like
probably
the
need
worst.
therapy after that. That's intense. Yeah. Well, man, mine's nowhere near as exciting. Mine says
okay.
cardio or weights. I don't like to run. I have been given by God the gift of being able to pick up a lot of stuff exactly one time. I can pick up a
Nice.
really heavy thing once and put it right back down, and that's all I got. Don't ask me to run. If you see me running, you should run too. It's a big deal. I don't like to do that. But the answer is weights all day. And with that, and with the final pitch for a 87 McLaren, pick yours up at a dealership.
McLaren?
3 days. I'm sorry.
What is a McLaren?
I'm sorry. The DeLorean.
There
Sorry.
you go.
Yeah, very
That
different.
is the only car we're allowed to talk about in this
DeLoreans
episode.
over McLarens
Much
all
more
day,
expensive.
every day. Yeah, it's been a great episode, guys. Thanks for being here. I hope the baby has calmed down now. Julian, I haven't heard any cries from
Probably
the
eating.
back. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. You're listening to Honest to God. Producer Ben,
Signing off.
over and out.